I'm Gavin Thomson, the Transport Campaigner at Friends of the Earth Scotland. I'm here today to talk about how we can campaign for and win a more sustainable and just transport system, and I'm really excited to hear other ideas about different areas that we quickly need to decarbonise.
How does transport link to climate change?
In Scotland, transport's our biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions, and I think an important part alongside that is that greenhouse gas emissions from transport haven't really gone down in like 30 odd years, where in a lot of other sectors we've made big changes, big improvements. So transport's a persistent problem, obviously not just for climate change, but air pollution and our economy as well.
What can individual people do with the different options for transport that are out there?
So on an individual level, we need to be moving to more sustainable methods where we can, but also fighting for the provisions for those methods. Transport's about a third of our greenhouse gas emissions in Scotland. Let's dig into that a little bit more. So cars are about 40%, and aviation between 10 and 15%. So cars is a huge block of our emissions in what is already the biggest emitting sector. But then flying, in terms of its overall impact for just that one person, it's enormous. So find trains and buses alternatives to flying would be really good if you can ever do that. And when the council starts doing a consultation, make sure your voice is heard, that you support it. A lot of times when we see something happening that we don't oppose, we don't do anything, do you know what I mean?
It's great to hear about the different infrastructure changes that are happening because I want to make sustainable transport choices, but what is the other things that need to happen from a government level?
Bus travel in particular needs to be made cheaper and more comprehensive. A lot of people just can't get a bus. Bus routes need to be restored. We've got about a quarter overall of the bus routes we had, say, in the mid-70s. So we're going literally in the wrong direction on buses. We invest huge amounts of money in new roads still, even now, even in a climate emergency. That money could be better directed in making bus travel more comprehensive and cheaper for everyone.
If somebody wanted to look into these options, where's the best place or what advice would you give them?
I think there's two important points to say about car travel, but the research actually shows drivers often overestimate the cost or the time for a public transport journey and underestimate the time it takes for their car journey. So car driving isn't always rational, and I think we need to think about that, thinking about alternatives. We need to think about denormalising, if I can use a fancy word. So that's about making sure walking, cycling, buses and trains are at the centre of the way we talk about transport. Also, some people are talking about, say, car advertising and removing that the way we did with, say, smoking or alcohol.
You talk about the kind of carbon emissions to do with transport, but what are some other environmental issues that we see because of transport?
So the way that we've built, particularly our towns and cities around the car, has a lot of negative impacts, not just climate change, it's air pollution, it's sedentary behaviour, and also the way that we've encouraged these out-of-town retail developments which have decimated the high streets, killed local economies, small businesses, and we're all driving miles out to a massive supermarket. The impacts of that are huge.
It's great there's stuff that we can do as individuals, but is there anything, say, our employer can do to help us with this?
There's a few things you could ask about in your workplace if you really want to support sustainable transport. One is how much bike parking there is. Often there's huge car parks and maybe 2 or 3 different places to park your bike. So it's askew, right? There's an inequality in transport modes. So encouraging just basic more bike parking. Showers as well in the workplace can really change how many people want to cycle to work or cycle home from work. That would be great. And I think also asking your employer to be more vocal about sustainable transport. If there's a cycle lane being planned, make sure that they are vocal about supporting it and not just assuming it would happen, because a lot of these plans look really good, face some stiff opposition from a minority of car drivers and then get shelved. That's happened in a lot of councils, so ask your employer to be vocal about the changes we want to see.
Sustainable transport is something I've always known as a good thing, and I've tried to explore it as an individual, taking trips on public transport. But my biggest takeaway from that conversation was actually, if there's something happening in my local area that I want to support, I should be really vocal about it. I should get others to be vocal about it, because if people don't support things, they might just get poured down the drain. And so I'm going to do that now, be really vigilant and think, how can I support things, not just stay silent.